Hello, everyone. I have with me Maulik Jain, who's just graduated from Wharton and returned to India to join his family business. A graduate in economics from the University of Cambridge in the UK, his professional journey spans global finance, entrepreneurship, sustainability, and family business leadership. From investing in climate tech startups to helping transform a decades old real estate business through sustainability initiatives, his journey offers a fascinating perspective on what it means to create impact through capital. Today, I'm excited to dive into his Wharton experience and the lessons he's learned along the way. Welcome, Maulik. Lovely to reconnect with you. Would you like to give our listeners a brief introduction of yourself? Over and above, of course, what I've said.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. So I'm Maulik. I'm originally from Bombay. I spent 6 years in the UK. I went there at 18 for undergrad. I did economics at Cambridge and then worked at JPMorgan in London for 3 years. Then spent 2 years back in the business. A year and a half, I was setting up our family office. And 6 months, I worked at a private equity fund as a pre-MBA secondary role called Multiples in Bombay. And then recently finished my MBA from Wharton, where I was doing a double major in finance and real estate. And recently joined the business full time, focusing on our real estate development efforts and efforts to institutionalize the way we operate the real estate side of the business.
All right, perfect. Okay, Maulik, with admits to Wharton, Kellogg, and Yale SOM, what made you pick Wharton over the other schools?
I would say two things. The first was Wharton's emphasis on finance and real estate. My prior background was finance, and I was looking to transition more actively into real estate. So that was a big pull for me. And I think the second was just the emphasis on community and building a network and connecting with your peers outside of class and the academic experience, because that was more of what I experienced in the UK.
All right, so we are going to, touch upon all of these a little later in our conversation. But let's start easy with a quick fire round. Tell me about your favorite class at Wharton.
Yeah, I think my favorite class was called Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's about learning how to persevere and work towards long-term goals. So I think that really left an impression.
All right, your favorite professor?
Favorite professor was Asuka Nakahara. He's a real estate development professor and recently retired after teaching for about 30 years. So he was quite a legend in real estate.
Right up your alley. Okay. Uh, a favorite Wharton tradition?
We have an event called the MBA Olympics where you get to play sports, Olympic type sports with your cluster and cohort early into the first year. So I think it's a great bonding activity.
Oh, wow. That sounds like fun. Okay, your best leadership lesson at Wharton?
I think it was just about being patient and kind of keeping a patient mindset when you're working in business or generally in life and just kind of persevering.
So obvious, but so often forgotten, right?
Yeah.
One word to describe Wharton.
I would say social.
All right. Yes, it's known to be a very social school. All right. One piece of advice for prospective applicants.
I would say just being authentic in the application process with the interviews, because I think that really stands out because a lot of people may not come across as authentic in the process.
All right. Just complete this sentence. You will thrive at Wharton if.
I'd say if you're selective with the opportunities you engage with and don't overcommit to trying everything.
I agree with you because you get so overwhelmed when you get on campus and you just want to do everything, be everywhere, get to know everyone that you forget to focus on what is important. True,
Yes.
right. Let's jump into our first bucket of discussion, which is academics and your learning experience, which is, well, one of the primary reasons why you go to business school. So, what aspects of the Wharton academic experience have been most relevant since returning to your family business?
I would say the real estate side of the academics. So, although Wharton is really known for finance and consulting, the real estate network is really niche and specialized. So, there's not so many students who are as interested in it, but there's lots of resources. So, I really leaned into some of the real estate classes around development, investing, and entrepreneurship. And I think also some of the professors and faculty in the real estate space are very well researched and have a lot of credibility. So I think just learning from them and connecting with them, I think those were aspects that I think have been quite helpful since.
Okay, which leads me to my next question. Were there any specific courses, professors, or frameworks that fundamentally changed how you thought about strategy, growth, or leadership?
Yeah, I would say Professor Macy Wong was one of our professors in global real estate. So she would discuss sort of real estate markets in India, China, Japan, and compare that to the US, where I think the US it's more institutionalized, there's more of an emphasis on REITs. But in India, that's still evolving. So just trying to compare the different markets and try to see how India could also evolve and mature to be more like the US, and efforts you can kind of make to ease that transition.
All right. How did learning alongside classmates from different industries, geographies, and career paths broaden your perspective? You yourself came from, your pre-MBA experience was in finance, in PE, and real estate. So how did all of that kind of, come together?
I would say just being exposed a lot more. In the UK, I was more across peers who were working in finance, consulting, maybe law, and a little bit of tech. But I think in the US, you have a lot more military background, startups, and the US is also quite a different market. So I think the exposure just gives you more of a view into sort of different career paths, different people, and different sort of upbringings. So that really, I think, over time just expands your perspective, and I think changes the way you see things generally as well. So I think just organically that tends to happen over time.
Would you have a specific example of, somebody you interacted with, maybe from a military background or maybe from a finance background or consulting or any other, industry or function that kind of really impacted you?
Yes, I had done a sort of global modular course where my roommate was a military veteran. And I think what stood out to me was just sort of his work ethic of sort of waking up really early, going to the gym, and kind of the same discipline that he was applying towards sort of recruiting and his life in the MBA. So I think that trait stood out to me, which I think is kind of more common in folks who've had a military sort of experience. And I think just trying to learn from that and apply that in work as well.
All right. Okay, which electives or experiential learning opportunities were particularly valuable for someone who came from a family business background?
Um, so I would say the family business club is the most common one because there's lots of people who have family business backgrounds in different parts of the world. So leaning into that network, um, I'd say that was probably the most directly relevant. And then the real estate club, of course, also had members who have real estate businesses in different parts of the world. So I think those were the two communities that I think helped from a family business perspective.
Would you like to expand a little more on how those clubs helped you?
Sure. Yeah, with regards to the real estate club, they connect us with a center called the Zell Lurie Real Estate Center. So
Hmm.
there's a formal mentorship program where you can be matched with someone who's worked in the industry for 2, 3 decades, and kind of work alongside them and share with them your ideas and your kind of career path and benefit from their expertise. And I think the idea is really to have a long-term relationship which you nurture and cultivate with them over time. So I'd say that was quite relevant. And with regards to the real estate club, there's a lot of speaker events, fireside chats, and lots of interesting speakers who come to campus and organize lunches with students. So I think all of those resources were also quite helpful.
So do you continue to be in touch with them and do you continue to, kind of leverage them in some way, even after graduating?
Yes, I think now there's the group chats and the community is still active. We also on alumni newsletter, which kind of gives you an update on the community, and a few members are active with connecting with each other and sharing resources. So definitely, the idea would be to continue that relationship and keep leaning into the community.
Perfect. All right. Okay, let's jump into the culture, community, and network at Wharton because that is what a school is defined by, right? Um, Wharton is often associated with finance and consulting. You came from a very different background. You've come back to a very different industry. How would you describe the culture beyond the stereotypes of finance and consulting?
Right. I'd say the majority of students do end up, I think, especially in finance, investment banking, private equity, a little bit of venture capital and consulting. But um, I think pre-MBA industries tend to be more diverse with startup backgrounds and entrepreneurial backgrounds. So the culture is definitely, I think, influenced by finance because that's what Wharton, I think, is really known for. But there's a lot of different clubs in lots of different industries. So I think there's something for everyone. And the more you engage with those specific classes and clubs, I think the more you're outside of the finance stereotype. But the culture in general is very welcoming and warm and collaborative.
Right. Um, and which kind of leads me to my next question, Nana. At Wharton, did you feel adequately represented and supported as someone from an entrepreneurial slash family business background?
I would say definitely at least leaning into the family business club and the real estate club, there were lots more community members who have those entrepreneurial backgrounds, business backgrounds. But more generally, I think in the class, it tends to be less represented because a lot more people from finance and consulting. But there's definitely, I think, it's within the class and within the Wharton environment, there's lots of people who have similar interests to you and similar backgrounds to you in different ways. So I think you still feel quite well represented because the class is quite diverse in terms of geography, industry, etc.
All right. Let's dive a little deeper into the diversity aspect. So, how valuable was the diversity of the student community in shaping your perspective as a future business leader?
I would say just understanding sort of different people's approach to, say, their own family businesses, even within real estate, for example. There were classmates who had a family business in Taiwan or in South Asia or somewhere in the US. So it was a very different sort of model and way in which they were approaching their work in the business and the mindset that they had. So I think just having such a diverse perspective, even within the real estate family business environment, I think just exposed me to different ways of thinking and try to bring some of those best practices back to the business in India and sort of the opportunity that there is within real estate in India. So, and I'd say more generally as well, the diverse ways in which people sort of uh, have different experiences before the MBA, they also have different discussions and offer you a different perspective on how you can sort of grow and expand the business. So I think that just offers you a little bit more of a broader way of thinking when you're coming back and settling in.
So, what have you brought back and what are you planning to implement in your specific business?
Yes, definitely. I think currently we are making more of an effort to kind of take the business to the next level. It's there's a legacy of 50 years and the business is completely debt free. So the effort now is really try to professionalize the way we are doing things internally, having policies for different practices within the business, making it more tech enabled, data driven, and approach real estate also with a more institutional mindset, where we're doing projects, trying to find the best partners, whether they're in the retail space, in the commercial space, extend beyond just redevelopment to also have more of a commercial model where we're investing in rent yielding real estate assets in Mumbai, and try to also look at spaces like hospitality, other than just residential commercial retail.
Any
So,
specific markets that you've been influenced by to implement all of these?
I would say that the US market in particular, because it's a little bit more, I think the financial aspect of real estate is a little bit more professional and institutionalized. And so I think trying to bring the way in which real estate is done a little bit more with a corporate mindset and institutional mindset, I think that definitely had an influence. And then also just learning from, I think, lessons from, say, Japan, which was really, really doing well in the 90s. And then there was a lost decade for 10 years. So just trying to make sure you're managing the different cycles within real estate and having that long-term mindset and keeping careful about when it comes to things like leverage and kind of over taking on more projects than you can fully complete and execute.
All right. So both on the upside and the downside, kind of managing both ends. All right. Since you did not you were not part of the recruitment process since you were not planning to work after you graduated. But did you do an internship in the US, or did you just come back to India and work in your business?
Yes, I spent the summer since we had a few projects that were kind of developing. I spent the summer in the real estate business itself in Mumbai.
All right.
I was exploring some opportunities for the summer in consulting and infrastructure investing in the US, but I just felt since the intention was to be back in the business full time, it was probably better spent in the business over the summer.
So since you were not part of, as I said, the entire recruitment process, let's touch upon, your leadership development and the business impact that you've created and plan to create. Tell me, how did the MBA prepare you to lead a business rather than work for one?
I think it was just in terms of the exposure that you have by sort of attending, sort of meeting speakers, connecting with faculty at events, the frameworks and the classes and the ways in which you kind of think about different things. For example, I took a class on negotiation where you're learning ways in which you can approach a negotiation more effectively and understand the other person's interests and sort of come in well prepared. So I found that quite relevant being in the business and being in a sort of real world negotiation. Um, and I think just different frameworks and ways of thinking, which I think will probably come in handy when you're working for yourself and in the business. But I would say just generally, I think it's similar if you're working for someone or working for the business in terms of what you're learning. And it just comes down to, I guess, how you implement it as an owner and not as an employee.
Okay. Can you tell me, certain ways in which Wharton has influenced your approach to innovation, transformation, or change management? You just spoke about a few of these things earlier, where you said you're implementing, a lot of new initiatives. How did Wharton influence that approach?
I think it was also similarly just the exposure to the cutting edge of what's happening within, for example, Wharton has an ESG initiative where you're learning about different sustainability and ESG topics and what's happening at the forefront of those. There's a big community around AI analytics. And so learning and being exposed to speakers and startups and the AI efforts that they're introducing. So I think it was helpful in just understanding more of what's happening at the cutting edge within these fields and then trying to find use cases in real estate where we are leaning a little bit more on cloud and AI resources. And I think it's also being implemented at some level with regards to architectural design and some of the work around visiting a site and making that process more friendly and accessible to customers or clients.
I know you've just been back 6 weeks, so it's kind of very early, but could you share a specific example where you've initiated something? I know, I mean, it's not something that could have been achieved so quickly, but you've initiated certain changes or implemented something.
Yeah, I'd say we're building on a model outside of the primary activity. I think, the 50 or so years has been redevelopment and within different asset classes. So we are introducing a sort of vertical where have more of a commercial model of investing in rent yielding assets within the MMR region, where we can either develop and then kind of lease out a real estate space or acquire an existing real estate space and try to replicate that model, because then you're moving away from just having money returned at the end of 4 or 5 years of a real estate project, but you're actually earning rent revenue every month in a more stable way. So those cash flows can be used more effectively for taking on other projects or uh, kind of your existing work. And I think the other effort has been we are doing a project where we are looking at different asset classes within the same building. So while you typically would have, say, retail and office or retail residential, we also want to have a private club and a hotel within the same building. So trying to find the right partners and helping with some fundraising efforts for that effort as well. I think those are the two efforts. So
All right. What is the one belief you held before Wharton that you no longer agree with today?
Um, yeah, I would say just thinking in terms of say 1 or 2 years with regards to careers and trying to be more intentional to not say find a job, but find a career and have a mindset of say 30, 40 years working towards getting better at in that space and building credibility. So I think that was a big shift in terms of thinking, just thinking more long term and not kind of finding the next job and then trying to recruit in more short term cycles.
All right. Now you just mentioned career. So let's talk about, career and return on investment, which is very different for, somebody from your background over someone who is looking to recruit for a job post an MBA. So for someone returning to the family business, how should they think about the value of an MBA beyond the salary outcomes?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the biggest value was just in terms of personal development and being exposed to so many different people and perspectives. I think it just offers you more perspective and changes the way you're yourself thinking. So I felt like that was a big shift for me over the past 2 years. And I think also just it makes you maybe a better leader and a better individual and more of an asset to the company because you bring in all the lessons that you've learned academically, socially. You have a network which you can lean on and maybe partner with in the future. I think it also gives more credibility when you're speaking to different members of the industry. And I think so. I think those were the biggest uh, learnings and intangibles. And with regards to, I think also the financial return and the tangibles, I kind of viewed it also similarly like a 30, 40-year investment where the 2 years that you spend are meant to pay off over a longer period of time. So just trying to work, kind of have that mindset.
All right. So you've answered the next couple of questions that I had for you in terms of, the benefit of the MBA, whether it was knowledge, network, credibility, confidence, and you've mentioned all of those, and how you evaluate the opportunity cost of stepping away from the business for 2 years. So you are looking at it in terms of, amortized over 30, 40 years and not just over the next couple of years. All right. Looking back, where have you seen the greatest return on your MBA investment?
Yeah, I would say definitely again, so sort of personally, it's been helpful because of the exposure to different people and the different experiential opportunities and the leadership sort of skills and learnings across the class. So I would say at a personal level, it's been the most helpful.
Would you make the same investment again?
Yes,
Or
I would make the same investment again. I would also say with regards to our family business, some of the projects that were ongoing were also sort of at early stages. So these past 2 years have also given a chance for the business to mature a bit and those projects to now be at a better stage. So I think the timing was also helpful in terms of entering the real estate side of the business properly at this stage, because some of our projects were still at the groundwork or there were some challenges on the ground that we were resolving. So I still felt the timing was a good decision.
great. I'm now going to turn the clock back to the time before you joined business school, when you were at the application stage. Let's talk about your application strategy and positioning. Uh, what typically happens to applicants from family businesses or entrepreneurial backgrounds is that they struggle to differentiate themselves. How did you position your story?
Yes, I'd say my profile was a bit differentiated since I was an Indian applicant, but I had worked in banking in the UK for 2, 3 years, and then had some real estate exposure, and I was setting up this investment office in the business. So I think the combination of those two were maybe slightly differentiated. And I was at the time also quite interested in the sustainability and the climate investing space. So my sort of story was a little bit more around setting up a fund within the sustainability space. But I think over the course of the MBA, that's evolved a little bit more to a real estate fund, which introduces sustainability elements. So I would say the pre-MBA experience was maybe a bit unique in the combination, and then the story around setting up a fund, I'd say those were maybe a little bit more differentiated.
All right. And that's where the major shift has also been from a climate fund to a sustainability focus in your real estate business. All right. How can applicants demonstrate leadership and impact rather than being viewed as simply inheriting an opportunity, when they come from family business backgrounds?
Yes, I think just trying to maybe emphasize more the changes or the value add you can bring into the business, because I think the prior generations also have had different experiences and different ways of thinking about the work. So trying to maybe put thought into the changes that you can bring, since maybe you're more exposed to what's happening in AI and the disruptions that are happening in the industry. So just trying to maybe be intentional and thoughtful about the changes you could bring, and share those with the in your essays and in the application.
All right. If you were applying again today, what would you do differently?
I would say definitely the 2 years have also given me more time to reflect on my goals post MBA and ways in which changes could be brought to the business. So maybe trying to be more thoughtful about how that could have happened before the MBA, and maybe share more of that in the essay. But I think that's also an evolving journey over the MBA, where the different experiences kind of make you reflect and think about things differently.
You're always wiser on hindsight. Yes. Okay, now I'm going to touch on the red pen's, a contribution to your journey. Tell me how we helped you, think out of the box, how we helped you, kind of step out of your comfort zone. Is there anything that we helped you change in terms of your thinking and positioning?
Yes, I think it was a lot of guided reflection in the application process. I think early on with the storyboarding exercise, it really makes you reflect every aspect of your life in a lot of detail. So I tried to, I think, be quite thoughtful about all of that. And then working with my lead consultant, Kaushik, he was really mindful on trying to build out a few stories from that document. And then I think there were a lot of drafts being shared and a lot of comments which were very specific to the specific words and the framing of the story and the positioning. So I think working with experienced consultants and the Red Pen team really just enabled me to be more thoughtful about what was being said, and trying not to replicate material in different aspects of the application, but being thoughtful and intentional, and being a little bit more careful with things that were being said. I think.
Thoughtful, intentional. That sounds good. All right. What advice would you give applicants from entrepreneurial or non-traditional backgrounds when they are applying?
Yeah, I would say I think it's quite welcomed, because since a large percentage of the class is more from traditional backgrounds, I think the environment is quite welcoming to people who have had different experiences, because it adds more diversity to the cohort. So maybe leaning a little bit more into the non-traditional aspects of your background, and bringing out lessons from those that were helpful for you, perhaps is uh, kind of something that would be an advantage.
Also, maybe aligning it with how, Wharton can still help you, achieve your goals, right?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about your personal growth and transformation at Wharton. What assumptions about business or leadership were challenged during your MBA journey?
I think the biggest shift was just trying to be more thinking more long term about your career and work and business, and not being focused on the next job and the immediate internship and then the immediate post MBA role. And I think the second was also just leaning into more of the network and the social side of the MBA, and connecting with your classmates, your faculty, and professors, as opposed to maybe more of on the academic side of things, which was more critical as an undergraduate student. So I'd say those were just being exposed to more of how important those things were, and just that shift in thinking, and being intentional about those aspects over the course of the business school journey.
I'm just going to pick on something you said about networking, right? Tell me, how does networking at Wharton work? Is it self-driven? Is it, kind of assisted for by the school clubs? How do you network at Wharton? And tell me how that network is going to help you today, now that you've graduated and are working in your family business.
Yes, I think I think definitely the networking happens. A lot of it is organized through the different clubs. So we have clubs for different careers, real estate, family business, but there's also consulting, banking, finance, PE, tech, and for different career fields. So a lot of it is student driven and organized, where there are speakers coming to campus, companies visiting campus, where you have an opportunity to engage with them. The clubs themselves have a lot of resources on and connections with alumni, and for example, there's a case handbook for consulting where you can prepare for consulting case interviews. And there's a career management club as well, where you can have discussions with advisors, and they can tailor make for you the different resources you can lean into for your specific career goals. And outside of that, there are always, I think, through classes, professors are very happy to tap into their networks and support you from a recruiting perspective and an academic perspective. So I think a lot of it is student driven, and Wharton also definitely enables that.
So there's a multi-pronged approach, all right. Tell me, how did Wharton change you personally beyond the academics and professional development?
I
What
think,
is the change that you see in yourself, today from where you were like 2 years prior?
being also more risk taking and not, for example, I went at Wharton, we have something called the leadership venture where you can go on a physical expedition and spend maybe trek in Patagonia or go sailing in New Zealand, or kind of push yourself physically. And I think, for example, that was just one example where you're really pushed outside your comfort zone, and not just academically, mentally, but also physically. And you kind of learn more about yourself when you're really struggling, and being and at the end of each day we had sort of a feedback session where you give feedback to each other. So I think it just also helps you learn a little bit more about yourself. And I think opportunities like that, where you're pushed outside your comfort zone, I think just help you learn, I think, more about other people, about yourself. So I think that has also been a change in the sense where I think I'm more open to challenges or taking on risks when it comes to the business or generally, personally, for example, also.
Right, self-awareness. That's good. I mean, it kind of promotes self-awareness. We since you're talking about all these trips, I also wanted to understand beyond beyond the tuition and living expenses, what are the hidden costs of going to business school that somebody who is a prospective applicant should take into consideration?
I think the two biggest one are definitely a lot of trips and travel opportunities which are informally organized by students, or they can be the leadership ventures or the global modular courses where you may travel to another city or country. So there tends to be a lot more additional expenses for those. And there's also often small group dinners, small group activities, which will be partially subsidized, but the remaining fees are paid for by students. Also, joining the different clubs, there's often a charge to join them
Ah.
as a member, and then once you become a member. So the costs often add up quite a lot through the trips and the food and the clubs.
So this is what prospective applicants should kind of look into and cater for when they are, considering their cost of an MBA. All right, thank you for that. Tell me, and we're kind of, reaching towards the end of our conversation, and I wanted some honest reflections from you. Tell me something that Wharton does exceptionally well.
I think just enabling you to enhance your own network. Each class, there's an opportunity to say, you can take a few minutes and talk to the person next to you. A lot of the classes are also group based and case based. So there's always chances to meet people who you haven't met. A lot of the McNulty leadership program, which organizes the modular courses and the electives and kind of other efforts, all give you a chance to just meet as many members of your class and also the years below you and above you. So I think it just allows you to maximize the diversity of the student body and meet as many different people as possible.
All right. That's good. What do you wish somebody had told you before you started your MBA?
I'd say just maybe knowing more about the specific resources that would be helpful for you personally in your career or professionally, because there's a lot of different opportunities and emails and groups that you added to early on. So just trying not to get overstimulated and being selective about the efforts you commit to. So because there's a little bit of a learning curve, I think, in the first semester with regards to identifying what's the best fit for you. So maybe just being a little bit more sort of knowledgeable about what would be helpful.
Right. Uh, what is the one thing prospective students should know before enrolling?
I think definitely, as we were discussing the financial costs outside of just the tuition and living expenses, so having a budget for the travel and the social opportunities and making sure you're mindful of those. And I think for those recruiting, also just being aware of the market. I think the job market is also a bit more challenging, especially for international students in the US. So just being aware of the opportunities that would probably be the most realistic and probable for you, and not coming in with, I guess, different expectations.
All right. To be realistic about your recruitment expectations, and of course, to budget for, costs over tuitions and living expenses. Perfect. If somebody from my last question for you, if somebody from a family business background is deciding between attending Wharton or staying back in the business, what factors should drive that decision?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think the fact that the business was still evolving, it gave the 2 years were a good chance for things to also stabilize in terms of our projects kind of moving further along. So I think maybe seeing the stage the business is at and trying to assess how the MBA would enable you to maybe bring changes and bring value back. And I think the intangibles maybe you can't really measure in terms of the perspective that you get and the exposure and the network. So I think regardless of all of those things, I think it adds a lot of value that I think is will compound over time and over the next couple of decades. So I think those were the factors I considered.
All right. So I guess basically, why do you need that MBA and why do you need it at this point in time? Correct. Yeah. And
Yeah.
of course, to look at the ROI on a long-term basis and not just in terms of how can I recoup that money over the next few years.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was lovely talking to you, Maulik. Thank you for joining me today. I'm sure our listeners, especially those from entrepreneurial and family business backgrounds, will take away valuable lessons on building conviction, creating impact, and making the most of the MBA experience. Thank you and good luck with your professional journey.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, I think that brings us to the end, and they will again cut off this part. I think that went well. Thank you so much, Maulik. It was wonderful connecting with you. Stay in touch with us. I'm in Mumbai as well. We have an office here. Drop by whenever you can. We are at Opera House here.
Yeah, have to.
Yeah, and we'd lovely to know what you're doing going forward and how you're doing things. We always like to know how our alumni are doing at business school and beyond.
Yes, sounds good. Definitely will do so.
All right. Okay. Bye. Have a good day. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye.